Hello dear friends, I'm Samuel Moore and welcome to my Study with Samuel video series. So today, I'd like to look at the flamenco paddle Sigiriya. Sigiriya is a slow-tempo flamenco form. There are many different ways to count its compás, but most commonly, players think of it as a 5-beat compás, counted like so. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and. Most commonly, Sigiriya is performed in the por medio flamenco key, which basically means A Phrygian. In this sense, when playing compás, the main chords you need to worry about are A major, B flat, and C9. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, the purpose of these lessons is not to show you the whole structure of how a Sigiriya works, nor is it to teach you falsettas or technique. Principally, we're interested in developing your compás playing. In other words, I want to show you how to embellish your compás so that you're not simply looping round the same idea again and again. In order to do this, I want to establish one core compás idea and use this as a framework for variation. The core compás idea we're going to look at today is this. So before we start talking about variations, let's just break that idea down and see what's going on. First things first, let's talk about the chords. So the main thing to worry about here is the fact that on beat 1, we're playing this kind of half voicing of B flat. It's basically a B flat chord, but without the B flat and without the F. So we're just starting from the D string, those notes, 1. Then on beat 2, we come to C9. Then on beat 3, we move back to B flat. And generally we play this voicing without the F in there. I'll explain why later. We then cadence back onto the A chord on 4, and we stay there on 5. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's the simple chord structure we're working with. But obviously, there are different things going on with both the left and right hand that require a bit of attention. So let's look at those. Beats 1 and 2 are relatively simple. We're just using the thumb to strum down across each chord. 1, and then the same on 2. So all we've got there is 1 and 2 and. Then when we get to beat 3, we come back to the B flat chord and we start by strumming down and across the chord, 3, and this is the reason why I told you to keep this finger available and not play the F. We're now going to have a moving bass line that goes C, B flat, and that's on the and of 3. So it's 3 and So what we've got so far, 1 and 2 and 3 when we get to 4 and 5, we come back to the A chord, and this is the melody we're going to play. With the thumb, rest stroke, play the bass note A, and then with the index finger, catch the octave A. So it's A, then the thumb again plays the note E, which is part of the chord, and then the index finger catches the A again. So it's A, E, A, and the movement is thumb, index, index. A, E, A. Thumb, index, index. It's worth mentioning that some players like to play the thumb at the end rather than the index, so their movement goes thumb, index, thumb, like so. I'm happy with whichever you use. I personally prefer the index, but which you choose is down to you. But put this in with the rest of the Compás, and what you get is this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and. And now, without me saying the numbers. So that's the core idea I want you to work with. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's only going to get more complex from here on in when we start looking at variations. And with this in mind, before looking at the next part of today's video, I really want you to make sure that you're 100% confident with both the Compás, the rhythm, and the actual chord ideas we're working with in that core Compás idea. So if you need to, rewind the video at this point and focus in on bits that you're not sure about and make sure you're confident before moving on. Before we continue with today's lesson, I'd like to do a quick shout out to let you know about my new Patreon account. For those of you who've never come across Patreon before, Patreon is a unique crowdfunding platform that allows artists like myself to offer exclusive content in exchange for monthly pledges. Your generosity allows me to continue working as a full-time musician, and in exchange you get access to some really great material, from unseen tutorial videos similar to this one, to flamenco guitar lessons. You even get access to my weekly gathering, the Midweek Guitar Meet. This weekly study group takes place on Wednesday evenings, and is a great opportunity to connect with a global community of like-minded musicians who share your passion, at the same time as getting targeted feedback from myself on a regular basis. So if all this sounds interesting to you, please click the link in the description below to access my Patreon page and select an option that works for you. I look forward to meeting you, connecting with you, and together, continuing our musical journey. Now, however, let's get back to today's lesson. So having now established our core Sigiriya Compás idea, I'd like to look at different ways we can vary this. In order to do this, I want to break the Compás into 3 clear sections: beats 1 and 2, beat 3, and beats 4 and 5. Let's begin by looking at beats 1 and 2. In our original example, we kept things relatively simple. We had this half voicing of the B flat, moving to the C9 chord. I'd like to begin by looking at some melodic ideas for varying these 2 beats. The first thing we're going to do is this. So what's going on here? Well, it's quite simple really. We're carrying on with that voicing that we used in the original idea. But instead of doing this delicate strum with the thumb, we're going to come straight down with the thumb as a strike. And at the same time, tap the body of the guitar with this finger. We're then going to hammer on with the index finger onto the E and pull off again onto the D. I'll do that again. And then instead of playing the full C chord on beat 2, we're just going to play the bass note. So it's 1, 2, and then carry on as normal. 3 and a, 4 and a, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very simple, but very effective. It's worth mentioning at this point that if you want to vary it a little bit more, you can also delay the melody by half a beat. So instead of coming in on beat 1, 1, 2, you can shunt it all into the second half of beat 1. So it's 1 and 2. It's a bit quicker and a bit more difficult to do, but it's very effective. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So very quickly, we've already been able to develop a really good well of resources to draw upon. Let's look at a few more. In addition to having melodic ideas on beats 1 and 2, you can also reharmonise the chords. Don't worry about that word, that's just a fancy way of saying you change the chords. So instead of having the B flat and the C9, we're going to have D minor and C major. And all we're going to do on these is strike with the thumb across the strings and tap with the finger again, like so. So it's just going to go 1, 2. And if you want to add a bit more interest, you could also use the pinky to mute the strings as soon as you play the chord. Okay? It's just an option. Now, from there, you just carry on as normal. So it's just 1, 2, 3, and a, 4, and a, 5. 1, 2, 3, and a, 4, and a, 5. And as we did in the last idea, if you wish to, you could also delay this by half a beat. So in other words, you start the D minor on the and of beat 1. 1 and 2 and 3 and a, 4 and a, 5. And 1 and 2 and 3 and a, 4 and a, 5. So you see what I'm doing here? We're not changing very much, but very quickly we're getting lots of really exciting variations. There's one other idea I'd like to look at on beat 1 and 2, and it's often overlooked. Basically, leaving space. You don't have to play anything, just leave beats 1 and 2 completely clear, and then come in again on beat 3. In other words, 1, 2, 3, and a, 4, and a, 5. 1, 2, 3, and a, 4, and a, 5. 1, 2, 3, and a, 4, and a, 5. So there we have it. There are a few really nice examples of beats 1 and 2. Now let's turn our attention to beat 3. It's worth saying at this stage that beat 3 is where the majority of your variations will happen when playing Sigiriya Compás. Previously, we kept things very simple. 3 and a, and that just led us back to 4 and a, 5. But there are a few things we can do here to make that chord, the B flat, a bit more interesting. The first idea is relatively simple. We hold the B flat chord for as long as possible. So instead of going 3 and 4, we're going to go 3 and then a pull-off phrase from C to B flat and then off to A, and thus dropping you in to 4 and a 5. It's worth mentioning here that the pull-off phrase, it doesn't matter so much where you begin, but it really matters where you end, because the A, that has to happen on beat 4. So it's basically 3 and 4 and 5, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. It's also worth mentioning this. When you're doing that pull-off phrase, you do have the option to substitute the C for a C sharp. So instead of going C, B flat, A, you could go C sharp, B flat, A. Now, I don't want to get into theory and harmony in today's video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail as to why that can happen, but in the future I will do another video explaining exactly why this is the case and how you can use it in other contexts. But for now, just try it as an exercise. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Let's look at a few more variations for this section of the Compás. You could keep everything you've looked at so far the same, but change the B flat chord. So all we're going to do is take this available finger and put it here on the G in the bass, and then simply carry on, or if you prefer with the C sharp. But before we try looping that, let's just talk about this chord. Students often ask me what's going on with this chord, and the answer is rather nuanced. The thing I would say about this chord is you've got to ask yourself what's more important, what the chord technically is or what its function is within the harmony. Okay? Technically speaking, this chord is a G minor. But within the context of the Sigiriya Compás, it's serving the function of a B flat chord moving back to A major. And the only thing that separates that B flat chord from the one that we played before is the G. So I would think of it as a B flat with a G in the bass if I were you, rather than a G minor. So all we're going to do is put that in with the Compás. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Or if you prefer, using the C sharp. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. Another option you have here is to change the melody slightly. So this is normal. 1 and 2 and then 3 and then we're going to have a moving bass line that goes B flat, C, B flat, and that drops you onto the A. So if I do that in the rhythm, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. You can also do this starting from the open D if you prefer. So that would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. It's literally D, C, B flat, A. Same idea, same rhythm, slightly different notes. Now, In addition to all these ideas, we can also reharmonize the B flat chord. We can change it slightly. And a really good way to do that is with this beautiful shape here. So all we're doing is we're using the pinky to play the G sharp, the index finger to play the B flat, and the open D. And all we're going to do here is go 3 and that drops you 4 and 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. In addition to that, we could use this shape to create a melody. Something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what's going on there? Let's break it down quickly. All of this is played with the thumb in this hand. And we're starting with this shape. So open E, the B flat, and the open D. All you're going to do is play the E and hammer on with the pinky onto the G sharp. You're then going to catch the B flat and the open D. So it's going to go and then pull off from C sharp to B flat, and then you cadence as normal. So it's So again, within a very short amount of time, we've built up a number of variations for beat 3. Let's finally turn our attention to beats 4 and 5. It's worth saying that we tend to not have as many variations for 4 and 5, but there are a couple of nice ways you can vary your Compás. But I can't emphasize enough this idea is the idea that you will come to most commonly when playing Sigiriya Compás. However, let's look at a few ways to change it. So, one of the best ways is to play everything as normal. 4 and then on 5 we're going to put the B flat into the chord with the third finger, and we're going to play that B flat and then pull off onto the A, which is part of the chord. So it's 4 and 5. 4 and 5. And this will work in any of the variations we previously looked at, but I will do it in the context of the original core idea, just for the sake of brevity. Here we go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And now without me counting. Another idea we can put in here is this. So all we're doing here is a slightly more syncopated phrase. We play the A bass note and the octave A, but we do this with a slightly angular feel to it. And then we play the A bass note again and hammer on to C sharp with the pinky. So it's, and then we simply catch the E and then the A. So it's, okay, and it's worth mentioning that everything's played with the thumb with the exception of the A on the G string, which is part of the chord. So it's... If I put it in the context of the classic compás that we looked at right at the start, it sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and a 5. Without me saying the numbers. So again, although we've only looked at a few variations, there's more than enough there to vary beats 4 and 5. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, work on these variations meticulously and understand how they fit into the overall compás. But once you've done that, try randomizing the order and improvising with them, and collectively this can create lots of interest within your wider compás playing. As always, I'll conclude today's lesson by doing a quick demonstration where I show you how to do exactly this. Here we go. Well, my friends, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed today's video, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the bell icon to receive notifications. There'll be more videos coming soon. If you're interested in studying with me on a more one-to-one basis, you can book Zoom and Skype lessons via my website. A link is in the description below. Until we next see each other, however, you stay safe, and as always, thank you for watching.